morning, one and all present here. I would like to thank Annie for giving me this opportunity. And also, I would like to thank our Chief Nursing Officer for guiding me and her unwavering support in getting this project done. So, the problem statement. So the problem statement, it is a quasi-experimental study to assess the effectiveness of a nurse-fabricated innovative device, that's K-Brace, on prevention of phlebitis among patients who were admitted in Kaveri Hospital. The methodology, the design implemented was a quasi-experimental study, and the participants, there were totally 60 inpatients who were admitted who were hospitalized in Kaveri Hospital and who were there in the ward for more than 4 days and had the IV line, intravenous therapy. So a dedicated observer was deputed to review the catheter sites on a daily basis, and auditing was done, and this project happened over 3 months period. Sampling technique, random sampling was done, whereby I had my control group and experimental group categorized as per odd and even number method. So the patients who were admitted in the odd number room were taken into control group, and the patients who were admitted in the control group were taken into experimental group. Setting, it happened in Kaveri, the study was conducted in Kaveri Hospital in multi-specialty ward, it's 7th and 8th floor. So each floor consists of 23 beds, on total 46 beds. So the inclusion criteria, the patients who were included in my study were the ones who were admitted in Kaveri Hospital in IP setting and who had an IV therapy with extensions of single, double and triple lumen. And those who were excluded were the patients who were admitted in ER or who visited ER, daycare and OPD and also the ICU. So I said the nurse fabricated device. So the device looks like this, which has, it is actually made up of the leftover woven material from the OT, so not much cost involved. And it has 3 pockets for anchoring the extensions. And actually we saw that the saggy hanging extensions were supposed to be the cause of phlebitis or IV complications, because when the extensions hang, there might be an upliftment of the tip of the cannula, which might irritate the vessel valve. So we sat and we did the brainstorming session and we developed this device. So coming to the findings, we divided the findings, we did the findings, we found as per the clinical variables, nature of the therapy and the reason for the removal of the cannula. So clinical variables, if you see, more than 50% of the complication, the phlebitis, was associated with 18 gauge Venflon and 43% with 20 gauge Venflon and 7% with 22 gauge Venflon in control group, whereas in experimental group there was no IV complications. And 64% of the complications were associated with the Venflon, which was on the left-hand side, and with triple lumen extension in control group, whereas in experimental group, there were no IV complication. Pertaining to nature of therapy, 57% IV complication happened because of antibiotics, specifically in control group. Antibiotics such as injection Magnus, Zone, Targozid, Piptas, clindamycin and all that. Same antibiotics were also administered in the experimental group, but in experimental group, none of the patients developed IV complications. With number of IV line days, we saw 47% complications happen in the patients with IV line days more than 4 in control group, whereas in experimental, no complications. Reason for the removal of IV catheter. So if you see here, in control group, the reason for IV catheter removal, 37% was because of pain and swelling and 10% because of phlebitis. Whereas in the experimental group, the reason for removal was discharge or due for the next change of IV line. To summarize, I think there was a significant reduction in IV complication by use of the innovative device K-Brace, and our nurses are educated and empowered and pertinent use of it. Way forward, I would say, with escalating factors pertaining to demographic and clinical variable, the study has to be conducted in a larger amount of group, and that's it. Thank you.
To know, how did you find the homogeneity of the sample? or were the sample were homogeneous? What is the sample characteristics?
Uh, there were totally 60, as a sampling, 60 patients. And if you can see, with the, if you see the sex, so female were 15 and male were 15, both in control and experimental group. So that was one pertaining to demographic variable. Pertaining to clinical variable, when it comes to use of Venflon, there was an homogeneity, specifically to the 18 gauge and 20 gauge Venflon, equally used. Both
So you selected only people who were with 18 gauge, or it happened to be like that?
randomly, ma'am. Randomly it happened.
Okay.
One was homogeneity of the population, which is asked you. One was homogeneity of,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
these are the confounding variables. The second confounding variable I found is, did these patients have comorbidities? And what were their comorbidities? And in terms of age, in terms of demography. And a second question would be, what were the kind of IV infusions that were given to them? Because the IV infusion per se is a huge, again, a confounding variable.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
was it the same between the two groups?
Yes, yes. Ma'am, the first question you asked was about the second question I would answer first. The medicines that were given was almost the same. Injection Magnus when it comes to antibiotics or chemotherapy, the irritant, the vesicant drugs. So here also it was given the Magnus, there also Magnus. Here also Targocid 4.5 gram, there also Targocid 4.5 gram. So there, that was safe. And
With the same dilution.
yes, yes, ma'am. And when it comes to the comorbidities, even that was almost same with diabetic, hypertensive. So
And age was also the same.
yes, almost. I won't say perfectly,
Did
but
you-
yeah.
Perfectly. So then coming to a very clear point, did you do any kind of a statistical analysis to find that both the groups were same to begin with?
Okay. Ma'am, I didn't do a statistical analysis at the starting to find out the homogeneity of the groups.
So
but-
normally we don't do it at the start. When we have collected the patients and the data, we try and see whether the two groups are same at the beginning. So did you do any kind of statistical analysis?
Ma'am, I didn't do thank you, ma'am. I didn't do the statistical check for the demographical data, but I did the statistical study for the IV complication and the correlation, rather I would say, between the IV complication and the clinical variable, for which I got the positive correlation. 0.9 was the.
Fine. Nonetheless, it's a wonderful thing. God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nice study. Same question I wanted to ask, like what were the comorbid factors, their age and location, the IV placement location.
Okay, the maximum IV placement location was metacarpal, and the comorbid factors were diabetes and hypertension with CAD as well. One more question you asked was?
Age.
Age, they were around 60 to, not 60, I would say 40 to 80, 83, 85 years of age.
Good study.
Last question, I'll
Yes, ma'am.
stop this. What were your objectives?
Ma'am, my objectives were to identify the clinical effect of the association of clinical variables on the IV complications, which I just showed in the frequency, and the number of IV line days, and the nature of therapy, and what was the reason for the IV cannula removal.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhilasha. You could be seated.
Honorable jury, respected delegates, thank you for opportunity given today for presenting our research paper in this esteemed forum. Our research topic was blood sampling process, impact of nursing training towards reduction of sample error. As we all know that as a healthcare member, blood sampling process is a very paramount process, one of the high process in determination of patient health. And day by day, the patient requiring health checkup and patient requiring the medical issues are growing on everyday basis. That's so the sample laboratory tests are also increasing. So laboratory test contributes the vital role towards patient health in which diagnostic and therapeutic decision relies on. Adequate preparation of patients, specimen collection and handling are a few essential parameters for accurate test results. The most common sources of blood sample errors in the pre-analytical phases are considered to be at the stage of patient preparation and sample collection. In order to reduce the blood sample errors in pre-analytical phase, we aim to determine the level of nurses' knowledge about the pre-analytical phase before and after plant training. The objective of the study were to identify the numbers of sample errors, to assess the compliance of blood sampling process, to evaluate the knowledge of nurses and impact of nursing training towards reducing sample errors. Coming to methodology, we have taken a quantitative approach with quasi-experimental design. The study was conducted in Apollo Hospitals, Guwahati. Staff nurses who were working in Apollo Hospitals were the population. We have taken purposive sampling for staff nurses. 100 staff nurses were the sample size. Nursing personnel who were not directly involved in patient care, those are excluded. There were two tools developed. One was structured knowledge questionnaire, another one is observational checklist. Hospital incident management system was used to identify the sample numbers of sample errors. Both descriptive and inferential statistics were used. The first tool, structured knowledge questionnaire, was developed with a 16 multiple choice questions with a score of 1 against each correct answer and 0 against incorrect answer was applied. Knowledge score level was graded as excellent, that is more than and equal to 13, good 9 to 12, fair 5 to 8, poor less than equal to 4. An observational checklist was developed to assess the compliance of blood sampling process in their practice. The checklist contains 16 points against which 1 score is given for compliance and 0 for non-compliance. While coming to sample characteristic, we have seen that 96% staff were female and majority of them, that is 49 numbers, were working in the non-critical care areas of the hospital. Study findings were organized into 3 sections. First sections were showing findings related to knowledge score of the staff nurse regarding sampling process. Table 1 showed distribution of range, mean, median and standard deviation of knowledge score, both pre-test and post-test. Table 2 showed frequency and percentage distribution of knowledge assessment of the staff nurse, both pre-test and pre and post. Graph 2 has shown the knowledge score of the staff regarding sampling process. Here we have seen that in the post-test, there are significant improvement in the knowledge score of the staff nurses. Section 2 showed all the findings related to compliance rate of staff in practice of sampling process. While going through this, we have seen that 97% compliance on blood sample collection process has been seen and 3% non-compliance. This compliances has been mainly seen in regards to how do they identify the patients before collecting of the blood sample, how do they do the inversion technique, especially because we have seen that in the pre-analytical phase that become a measure for hemolyzed sample and all. So few parameters have been seen. Section 3, in regards to these findings, we have taken the help of hospital incident management system to know that how many errors were there before. And after we do the analysis, we have seen that there are significant reduction of the numbers of error, mainly blood sampling error, post-training. I thank to Ma'am Aziz for giving us the evaluation of this like pair t-test, although it was not done when we published. However, the raw data were available, so we have done it again, and a comparison of the mean difference between the pre-post-test scores, so that the significant difference for impact of nurses training in reduction of sample error. We have got the calculated t-value of 21.86 and tabulated value at the level of significance of 0.05, it was 1.984, so there was significant difference on the training. So these are the few glimpses of nurses training on phlebotomy. While planning this training program, we have planned particularly exposure them in the phlebotomy room so that they can have a continuous practice on the blood sampling process, especially in the inversion techniques, how to paste the barcode, how to identify the patient identity. We also have done in-service training where all incidents or mainly near misses are presented as a case studies so that nurses understand the level of errors. We have done different kind of on-job training in the bedside. In terms of workshop also we have done. So these are the few glimpses of training. These study findings were compared, and it was seen that with different other studies, and the study findings were, it was matching with different kind of studies, which is shown in the reference. To summarize, we have concluded that the majority of the staff had good knowledge. However, the practice carried out by the staff were not fully compliant in the reducing sample error. However, further intervention and more studies are required to go ahead with that. Way forward, because we have to sustain this practice among nurses in order to prevent such sample errors. So few practices are continuously in place, like process check by charge nurses and above, continuous training to reinforce the staff on sample collection process, discussion about the incidences, mainly near misses and the other errors are the major one. Thank you so much. These are my reference. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Awesome. Good
Thank you,
work,
ma'am.
dear. I have a few questions for you. I didn't understand the need of the study. Will you be able to explain to me?
Need of the study, ma'am. Ma'am, it was noted to us that there were so many blood sample errors in terms of sample getting hemolyzed. From laboratory, it was coming, samples were asking, repeat sample were asked, and we have seen the, the report where variants were their report. So we found out when we do the root cause analysis, we found out that nurses were not having the proper knowledge on the exact technique of the blood sample. Like each vial has to have different techniques of inversion, different numbers of they have to, how do they do, and which vial to select, and that method of that blood sample collection, like open method, it was not 100% with the closed method blood sample collection process. So after we found out those, and there were significant numbers of errors, ma'am.
Good,
This was
good. And what was the percentage of the errors to begin with?
Ma'am, if I have to say average.
If you had a total sample collection of 100, what was the percentage of errors that happened?
Ma'am, it was 20 to 30%.
20, you all have analyzed that.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you all break it down into what were the kinds of errors that
Yes,
occurred?
ma'am.
The ones that you just explained now.
Yes, ma'am. After
Okay.
doing that, we again wanted to do like what was the error? Was it because of the inversion technique? Was it because of the nurse's knowledge? Was it because, is it because IPSC error? So we have break it down. However, it was not included in this study, ma'am.
So what I understood from your study, there were multiple errors.
Yes, ma'am.
There was something at the baseline, but you went on to study the knowledge and you went on to study the clinical and you have analyzed that.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
you didn't revert back to understand that these were the errors to begin with. How many errors came down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so maybe perhaps you could go ahead and see that
Yes, ma'am.
also.
After this study, we have done that, ma'am. In 2023, we have done that, and we have we did that as a QIP actually. But those things were not included in this published research, so I could not
Okay.
put it here, ma'am.
Okay. Because you have worked hard, I wish that part had come in.
Yes,
because that is a baseline that would have shown how you all concluded. Another thing I personally felt is, I liked your OSCE scale, your observation tool. I should not say it as an OSCE scale, or observational tool. I did find that there were areas like followed infection control protocols. Now, when you talk about infection protocols, there are many. So you all have clubbed it. So supposing if I am collecting the blood sample and I've not followed something, how did you all rate it? So I wish it was more specific, more clear in terms of OSCE. Then you could have rated it and found out.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Very nice study it is. What were the reasons of sampling errors that Madam had asked, I think. What were the reasons? Do you have a data for that? Like before that, you have a data in hand. Based on that, you did the study?
Yes, ma'am. We had the data with us.
Yeah, and the nurses, again, the variables among that, like nurses' experience and all that, you have categorized when you select a sample.
Ma'am, actually the sample were non-homogeneous. We could not identify, we could not select the nurse like this group only we could give the training. That is why we have used the quasi-experimental design. However, the nurses were mostly in the experience of 0 to 1 years experience in the hospital.
So that was a criteria, one of
Yes,
the
ma'am.
criteria.
Actually, we have scheduled them who will go to the phlebotomy room for exposure training. So while scheduling, we have kept that point in our mind, ma'am.
And in your induction, is that phlebotomy training that is being included
It is
in the induction
included.
training?
It is included, ma'am. However, as we are discussing today from yesterday, like again, it is not been, practice if somebody is not seeing, they are not using that inversion. So we have gone to a in-depth training, especially in the phlebotomy.
Yeah, okay, nice study. Good.
Thank you, ma'am.
So your sample were the new nurses, the freshers, right?
Yes, ma'am. 0 to 1 year.
Yeah. How long you provided them the training?
Ma'am, 1 day full exposure training in the phlebotomy room, and followed by that the on-job training. Weekly, we had 2 days for on-job training. So as per that, we have scheduled that training, ma'am.
The post-test was conducted after how many days of training?
Ma'am, post-tests were conducted like one girl has to undergo 1 day of exposure training, then 2 days weekly, that 4 times they have to conduct that on-job training, which has to be supervised by nurse educator. Post that only we are going to do the post-test.
Okay. This is not a question. I just wanted to tell you that whenever we write something which is significant, statistically significant,
Yes, ma'am.
it is not only showing the observable significance, it has to be shown with the p-value. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your feedback.
Thank you, Ms. Karishma.
Thank you, everyone.
Good morning to one and all present here, and thanks Annie for such a platform. Chronic kidney disease has been recognized as a leading public health concern worldwide with a prevalence rate of 13.4%. Needing renal replacement therapy is estimated between 4.9 to 7 million. Kidney disease is associated with tremendous economic burden. In India, the prevalence of CKD is 13 to 15.4%, which is no different from that of the Western world. So, a study to determine the quality of life in patients with chronic kidney disease on dialysis for more than 3 months at Apollo Multispeciality Hospital, Kolkata. Chronic kidney disease is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular morbidity, premature mortality, and has severe impact on quality of life. But even with the use of modern and effective dialysis for therapy, patients may still suffer from different types of complications. Need for the study. Leading with a chronic kidney disease patient present numerous challenges that affect an individual quality of life, physically, emotionally, and financially. Patients with CKD who are treated with dialysis experience many threats to quality of life, both from the mirror symptom of ESRD and from the physical and mental burden of dialysis treatment. And so there arises the need for the study. Objective of the study: to assess the quality of life in patients with chronic kidney disease on hemodialysis for more than 3 months, to assess the association of quality of life with selected demographic variable, to assess the relationship between various domains of quality of life. The operational definition has been defined that CKD, dialysis, and quality of life. Dialysis means hemodialysis, and quality of life means physical, psychological, and social domain of health. Study has been conducted while reviewing the literature with CKD and health-related quality of life, factor affecting the quality of life in hemodialysis patient, and literature related to CKD on maintenance hemodialysis. Research methodology. The research approach was non-experimental survey approach. Descriptive survey design was there. Setting of the study was Apollo Multispeciality Hospital, Kolkata. Population was CKD patient. Sampling technique was non-probability convenience sampling technique. Sample for the study was CKD patient who was receiving dialysis for more than 3 months. Pilot study was conducted with 10 patients to see the feasibility of the study, and final study was conducted with 60 participants. Variable were demographic variable and research variable. Research variable include general health, burden of kidney disease, and effect of kidney disease. Data collection tool was two. One was demographic profile and two was modified kidney disease and quality of life questionnaire. Plan for data analysis was descriptive and inferential statistics. Tool was validated by 5 experts and reliability testing was done by Cronbach Alpha. Data collection tool and technique. Tool 1 was for demographic profile, contained 13 items. Tool 2 was modified kidney disease and quality of life questionnaire, contained 19 items. Technique was used was questioning and interviewing. Ethical permission was taken and informed consent was obtained from the participant. Inclusion criteria was chronic kidney disease on patient on hemodialysis for more than 3 months, age more than 18 years, speak Bengali, Hindi or English, as well as consented for the study. Unconscious critically ill patient with confusion and disoriented and patient with physical and mental disability was excluded from the study. Collected data was organized, tabulated and analyzed under 3 sections. Section 1 described the demographic information. Section 2 described the quality of life with kidney disease and its associations. And Section 3 correlation between various domains of quality of life. In this table, we see that frequency and percentage distribution of demographic variables. Here we see that 70% of the participants were male, 42% belongs to 47 to 62 years of age, and it also depicts that 48% consume medication more than or equal to 5, And causes of kidney disease, diabetic account for 49% and hypertension constitute for 23%. Standard deviation of domain of quality of life and frequency and percentage distribution of quality of life. Here we see that 20% has good quality of life, 53% has average quality of life, whereas 27% has poor quality of life. Association between quality of life and demographic variable, we see that there is an association between quality of life with age, marital status, qualification, income and number of medication consumed. In section 3, we see that coefficient correlation between quality of life and general health of the participant, quality of life and burden of kidney disease, and coefficient correlation of quality of life with effect of kidney disease. And we see that there is a positive correlation as R value is 0.612, 0.8686, and 0.6613 as 0.05 level of significance. The study finding is similar to the study conducted by Alam M. and Ott et al., Sani A. et al., and Pakaya et al. Way forward, a similar study may be conducted on a larger sample in different settings. A longitudinal study could be conducted to assess the quality of life in various stages of chronic kidney disease. An experimental study can be conducted on improvemental strategy of quality of life on CKD patients on dialysis. After conducting this study, it is helpful to understand the impact of chronic kidney disease on quality of life and suggest potential area that can be targeted for therapeutic intervention and enhance the improvement of patients' care. Thank you.
Nice study, this one.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, for this research, you must have read a lot of literature. As you have supported the studies, you have got already a supportive studies for your. So, what are the strategies like to improve this patient's quality of life that you must have read in the research?
Ma'am, one thing that we have identified that who has good quality of life, who has average and poor. So, who is having poor quality of life and who is having good quality of life. So, to motivate or to adjust or cope up with the disease and with the treatment process, we can have a session with them, or we can make them to meet and understand, because they both sail on the same boat, so they can understand each other better.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mangala. Well explained study. Just wanted to ask you, what is novelty in this?
Ma'am, what?
What is new in this? What is novelty of this study?
Ma'am, new means in our setting we never has done this such study to see that is the dialysis, what is the mode of treatment modality for the CKD patients. Are we providing the enough of it, or are we maintaining the quality of dialysis with the patient so that we can.
Okay, in your setting, this study has not conducted.
No,
That
ma'am.
is the only thing.
This is the first.
Otherwise, there are n number of literatures available on this quality of life of patient. Second is which questionnaire you used, quality of life?
Man, modified kidney disease and quality of life.
Okay, thank you.
It's a nice study. I like the answer that you gave, Madam Aji, that you wanted to do the study in your clinical area. And I would have asked you this question anyways. And then I want to tell you, why didn't you convert this research into an action research? Okay, were it to be an action research, nobody will ask you the question, why did you do this study? Because you're trying to study the problems in your own clinical area and you're trying to prep them up, improve them. That is one thing. This tool that you took, is it commercially available or it's commercially?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you still take permission?
No, ma'am. Commercially, it is not available. It is free. But out of that, I have modified it and we have validated from the expert.
Excellent. Okay, that was one important thing, because most of the time I have taken this tool, I've done it, and it's not really applicable in Indian context. So good on that part also. There are domains in this tool. Did you analyze the various domains and did you identify what problems your patient had? Which were the major concern areas?
Domains of the quality of life, that one was a physical domain, other was a burden of kidney disease on the total quality of life, and other was the effect of kidney disease on the quality of life.
So
These
did
are
you
the three
analyze
domains.
it domain-wise or you analyze the tool as a whole?
No, ma'am, tool as a whole.
Whole. Now, they have given you how to analyze the tool.
Yes, ma'am. But
So
as
did you
it was a
change
mod,
it?
Yes, ma'am. As it was a modified and already I have taken the tool, validated and reliability testing was done. So,
Perfect. I honor that. I have a last question for you. CKD patients come to you in various stages. In
Yes,
which
ma'am.
stage was your patient, and did you analyze it stage-wise? Because we have found the patients who have come in earlier stage have got different kinds of problems. So
True,
when
ma'am.
we analyze the domains, and when the patients came to us at the latter stage, the problems were different.
Yes, true.
So we have to work upon them differently. So did you do any kind of blocking when you were analyzing
no,
your
ma'am.
study?
Actually, I have already taken the setting end-stage renal disease who are going for dialysis. That means
Okay.
already stage 5.
Okay, so you have taken ESRD.
Yes, ma'am.
So all these patients are
As
same,
same.
homogeneous.
Yes, ma'am.
Good, you win on that also. God bless.
Thank you, ma'am.
Move on to the second set of presentations, quality improvement projects. The first presentation is from Ms. Shampa Taluka, Senior Clinical Instructor, Apollo Multi-Speciality Hospital, Kolkata.
Namaste and very good morning to all present over here. Thank you, Annie, for this prestigious platform. I am Ms. Shampa Talukdar. My project reduce the harm associated with clinical alarm system in intensive care units. So we did this project. I thankful to all our team members. This is the huge alarm safety. Those three little words are a shocking call to action by the JCI in 2014 National Patient Safety Goal. Clinical alarm systems are intended to alert caregivers of potential patient's problem, but if they are not properly managed, they can compromise patient safety. These are my problem statement. This is the first one is the alarm fatigue, risks of missed or mismanagement actionable clinical alarms due to too many alarms ringing at a time can lead to patient's clinical deterioration and other adverse effects. Another one is the practice gap. Noise can lead to acute stress for patients and chronic stress for caregivers. Then gap in competency, lack of knowledge and competency of nurses on handling the clinical alarm, normal range of alarms and its management whenever required. Then last one is the consultant continuously complains due to missed or unattended alarms, misleading in clinical decisions. So these are my objectives. First one is to reduce the instances of alarm mismanagement which can lead to patient harm. Next one is to build in competency by comprehensive training on clinical alarm management. This is my baseline data when I did my project. Number of incidents per month related to clinical alarm management. It was baseline, it was 28. My target, it was it should be more less than 5. And nurses' knowledge, we did the study that time. It was baseline, it is ever 60%, and my improvement target, it should be more than 90%. So these are the root cause analysis we did that contributing factors related to incidences of clinical alarms related to patient, staff and process and equipment. Then these are the, you can see over here, types of alarms. Mostly 90% non-actionable alarms are the major cause of the desensitization of hospital staff towards alarm, thus resulting in alarm fatigue. These all are the steering committee members. We involve everyone, our physicians, our nurse in charges, nurse educators, critical care supervisors, then leadership, all leadership management team, and quality personnel, and after that biomedical personnel also. This is my project charter. This is our journey. We validate all our tools from the quality departments. This is the DMAC we adopted for this project. Clinical alarms include all patients' physiologic monitoring and patient care equipments alarms. It plays a crucial role in patient safety by alerting nursing staff to identify potential life-threatening problem. This is the pre-project data collection process and tool. Mainly tracker sheet we use to observe the incidents related to alarm failure and patient harm and how many false alarms. And we use the questionnaires to assess the knowledge of the staff, critical care staff, and as well as we use the competency check tool for different biomedical instruments for the, to check the competency level of the critical care staffs. This is the pre-phase data analysis where we can see that biomedical instruments versus false alarm, 61.7% we got the false alarms from the patient monitor. These are the number of incidences where, what we noticed during the pre-phase analysis, that different types of incidences like monitor was suspended, then SPO probe was not attached, that's why patient developed hypoxia, then due to monitor mismanagement, that's why patient developed the arrhythmia. All these we have noticed during our pre-phase data analysis. Then now when we did the knowledge analysis, that time we seen that average to good it is the 60%. And now we came to the implementation phase. The hospital have taken a variety of approaches to alarm management and address the alarm fatigue. First, we provide the robust training program. This is the training program with the training department, with the help of our training department and with the senior in charges, we did it, and we involved our simulation lab and continuous sensitization to our staff. Then we reward and recognition for the motivation of our staff. These are the few snapshots. You can see that classes, different classes, we used our management, our CEO also for rewarding them. This is the clinical alarm displayed in all departments. This is the post-phase analysis where we can see that it is incidence has reduced. It came down to 4, and pre and post analysis when did knowledge evaluation, that time it is the markedly it has improved. It has came to 88% average to good knowledge. And biomedical instrument false alarms also, it is came down from 61 to 24%, 24 in case of the patient monitored. This is the intervention towards sustainability. Continuously we are doing audit, training, it is continuing. This is taken as a high risk process, a continuously basis, it is going on. These are we have achieved success and continuously we aim to sustain this record in the upcoming months also. This is the results and impact. This improvement in nursing staff, reduction in adverse events, and staff fatigue also, it has reduced. Way forward, safety is a dynamic non-event. To revise our plans, we are continuously doing to explore innovative ways, to continue education and network with others. So we can conclude that it is a clinical alarm management. This is a multidisciplinary team approach, and nurses has a major role on it. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask you, you could achieve the benchmark of the alarm mismanagement to 4, right? Your benchmark was 5 and you reached to 4. That's what you mean to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our less than 5, it was our benchmark.
And the nurse's
Incidences.
knowledge, you said it is more than 90 and you reached to
we reached
88.
88% average to good.
Okay.
Yes.
What type of mismanagement was common? They switch off the alarm and they fend off, or what is the mismanagement you found?
Ma'am, mainly in the critical care unit, whenever there is continuously alarm, they are not setting the alarm high level and low level. They are just getting put up the alarm without seeing the words because of which alarm it is coming. They are not checking that one. They are going and just directly put up the alarm. So the muting the alarm, which can cause the patient harm directly.
Okay. So your analysis or the way you found out was subjective. There is no there is no observation checklist for this, right?
Ma'am, observation checklist we made that
No, for how they are managing the alarm.
how they are managing the alarm. For that we have assessed the knowledge gap. Means they are having the knowledge, means for what reason the alarm is coming. That knowledge they are having or not, that knowledge gap we have measured.
Okay.
Thank you. It is nice presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Like I wanted to ask, like how frequently you does all the biomedical equipments that is being maintained, so that this problem may not arise. Like and the another things like, are you going to develop a policy with this
Yes, ma'am.
alarm? Like
Yes, ma'am. We
Is it being-
developed clinical alarm policy, SOP we prepared, and after that we are having with the biomedical together, we are having continuously we are doing the meeting, and continuously we are including them for our training process. They are coming to our training, and we are having schedule for them also. And they are PM sticker every 6 months they are coming and they are doing monitoring all these equipments. They are doing it. That's why whatever the technical alarm that can be reduced with that.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
To me, this is a wonderful study
Thank you.
because it's just the need of the hour. And I always find invariably the nurses just going and pressing the silence
Muting
button.
the alarm.
I personally try and introspect myself. Why is that we all do? Just go and press that silence button. And we have researched on that, and we have found it is more the instrument which is wrong than actually giving the alarms. And that's causing a lot of alarm fatigue in the persons. Okay, so I have one question for you. Whenever you do a research work, you need to make your instruments reliable at base level. Did you all work upon getting all your instruments checked from the biomedical team to say that yes, all these are at the base level and they will not give a false alarm?
Yes, ma'am. That's we have assured with the biomedical personnel, and they came and they checked whatever the instruments it is. It is continuous process. In our hospital, there is a biomedical, they are continuously available, and there is a technician also. That ICU technicians also continuously available. They are they are having the courses in our hospital. That's why they are continuously available in the ICU, and they have assured the monitor is not technically wrong. If sometimes battery is giving low alarm, so immediately they are doing that correction. So from the biomedical end, we are not getting that much of technical alarm.
Nonetheless, but you got false alarms much more earlier and you got your false alarms much lesser later on.
Yes,
So
yes,
which
ma'am.
I felt, that's my perception, I could be wrong. I felt since you all had involved the biomedical team in your training program, so they were now constantly calibrating all the instruments every now and then to see that it is not giving a false alarm.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
A second thing I also felt is, whenever you have a patient, do you have something called a standard for pulse or any parameter that the alarm should be at, the lower alarm should be at 50 and the higher alarm should be at 150, something like
Yes,
that?
yes.
Or do you all individualize it for
No,
patients?
ma'am, we are having that SOP, standard operating procedure for the clinical alarm. According to the patient's clinical parameters, we are setting the that parameters in the patient monitor.
At what
and
percent?
that to be written by the doctor.
At
Whatever
what
the
percent higher and lower? So it
10%.
might- 10%.
10%,
But that
yes.
is what I did not find in your tool. You all
Okay,
wrote
ma'am.
it as
Okay,
50.
That
and
is
100.
10%.
So I was
we are
wondering
setting.
why that was happening.
That is the SOP,
Otherwise-
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shampa. Request you to take up the dais. The next presentation is from Ms. Jaslyn, Quality and Patient Safety Nurse, Kaveri Hospital, Radial Road Unit, Chennai.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning to everyone. I thanks for giving this opportunity, especially to Annie and to our Chief Nursing Officer. My topic is regarding the innovative strategy pertaining to the IV complication. The problem statement is the quality improvement program pertaining the IV complication with the use of innovation strategy, empowerment and amendment of guidelines among the patients admitted in Kaveri Hospital. I could say that intravenous cannulation and drug infusion is one of the most common procedure which is being conducted in all the hospitals. The problem which we face because of the IV cannula is phlebitis, infiltration, extravasation are very more common problem. And being a startup hospital, we have already placed a protocol and policies to control the prevention of IV complications. With all this, in the month of September, we had one issue of infiltration and 10 number of phlebitis, which was really alarming to us. So we adopted the dynamics process to reduce the IV-related complication. So the measurement, as a measure, we took the audit on the controlled practice, and then we wanted to educate and train our staffs on it, revise the current protocol, and then we wanted to implement the IV extension ban, re-audit and sustain the audit. Regarding the audit, when we were doing the audit, the gap which we found was aseptic technique followed was 57%, and the adherence towards the flushing protocol before and after administration was 33%, and lack of clinical judgment was 80%. Audit on current practice, the removal of IV cannula was among the 48 hours of the IV insertion. It was mostly because of the high antibiotics and the irritant drugs. And removal of phlebitis within 24 hours was among the 60 years with the wrinkled skin, which was 17%. The root cause analysis was pertaining to the IV complication. When it comes to the lack of knowledge, clinical judgment, inadequate knowledge, lack of experience, lack of training, and escalation. When it comes to the machine, it was inadequate supply of a Vialon material, dangling of the IV extension. Material use was Teflon, shortage of the Teflon supply, Teflon material supply, and the method, aseptic technique was not followed. Flushing protocol was not adhered, and then the documentation was not done. The sterile semi-permeable dressing was not applied. And then we planned an classroom training and bedside training was given to the staff regarding the insertion of the cannula. Then revision of a current protocol. According to INS guidelines, the peripheral catheter are to be placed every 72 to 96 hours. Based on the VIP score, we amended our policy saying that the peripheral catheter can be replaced when the score is 1, and the nurses are also empowered to change the IV line as and when required when the VIP score is 1. And when we did a re-audit, it was really an alarming because in the month of December, we again had one instead of infiltration. And when we were doing a root cause analysis for it, and we found that the tangling of the IV line extension was one of the main reason for the phlebitis. At that time, we did a brainstorming section with the team, and one of our nurse came out with a new innovation of a wristband with the pockets to anchor the extension. Then we implemented the improvised strategy, stating that the catheter indwelling time could amended to 48 hours to 72 hours, especially for the highly irritant drugs and elderly with the wrinkled skin. Empowered and encouraged our nurses to apply a clinical judgment in changing the line, and refusal concern if the patients were not willing to start a new line, the nurses were reinforced to take a refusal concern. And we also empowered our nurses to flush the line in between each drug, especially between the irritant drugs. To prevent the dangling extension, we used the IV ban, which was innovated by our nurse. Sustained audit has been conducted to audit the regular practice and to make sure the practice is being followed. Summarize, change of IV line after every 72 hours based on the VIP score. It has been amended according to our hospital policy, that is within 48 to 72 hours. And we have empowered our nurses to apply the clinical judgment, and if there is any irritant drugs, we made sure the nurse will not start with the same line, which is 42 to 72 hours. She's actually supposed to start with a new line, and refusal consent will be obtained if the patient refuses to have a new line. Then the flushing protocol in between the medication has been insisted, and applying a K-brace. Way forward, the departmental protocol and manual as now has been initiated with the project, and then the formulated tool hospital form is being used, effective neutralization of a wristband, which has really been effective in reducing the phlebitis, and it helps us in controlling the phlebitis rate in our hospital. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It is a very good study. Like again, it is repetition, I think. Again, a lot of variable comes in, like IV location, the placement of IV line, then the comorbid factors that are has to be taken into consideration. Then there are antibiotic policies, like when you give irritant drugs, like what are the policies, like how the duration, the dilution, that is more important. That is being taken into the consideration.
Yes, ma'am. All the antibiotics, when they dilute, we have been saying, mostly it has been done in the ICU. ICU, we use a very small quantity to dilute. And with that, we found that so many people have been having a phlebitis because of the tangling of the three-way extension. So we said when they are going to start with all the irritant drugs, in between each antibiotic, we have to flush the line. And if we are going to start with any of the TPN, we have to initiate a new lines, ma'am.
This band, that is how much?
K-brace.
K-brace, that how much it cost?
It's cost-free, ma'am, because it is a leftover from the OT, which we have been using it, ma'am, with our in-house tailor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What did you say? This is free from OT.
Yes, ma'am.
How did it reach to OT? They bought it.
Ma'am? Ma'am, it is actually which is used for covering the sterile packs, which has been left over in OT. We have taken and we have reused it. So it is actually a cost-effective free, ma'am.
Okay.
I don't have any question. I only had the question what she asked you, and maybe you were not so clear with it. She asked you very clearly that whenever you start in an IV line, phlebitis is inevitable. It's going to occur. But there are many confounding variables. If I'm old, I will get it faster.
Yes,
if you're going to give me any concentrated drug like Corderon or something, I will get it faster. If the dilution is not done properly, it will happen faster. So if you have taken care of those confounding variables,
yes, ma'am.
then what you come out with the result stands true. So those have to be taken care of.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
One thing, in your way forward you have written, we will not wait for the standard protocol of 96 hours. If it is required, we will go change it after 72 hours also. If it requires, we will change even if it is less than 24 also, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's what, ma'am. It's depending upon our thing, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jaslyn. We request the final presenter, Ms. Sonali Manoj Thamble from Sayadri Hospital, Hadaspur, Pune, to present. Over to Ms. Sonali, please.
Good morning, one and all present here. Am I audible? Thank you. Patient can't measure the quality of clinical care, but they can measure quality of experience. With this note, I would like to present QIP on nursing initiatives to enhance patient satisfaction score. So we had a problem statement. Patient rating to nursing services was falling in satisfactory category, as evidenced by our average rating was 3 out of 5, and average nursing patient satisfaction index score was 84. So we aimed our study to evaluate patient satisfaction level with quality of nursing care and develop interventions to enhance PSI. With the three main objectives, that is patient satisfaction score within benchmark, have self-motivation to give best possible care through quality nursing interventions, address patient complaints, queries, and concern in positive and effective manner. We used a regular methodology of Plan, Do, Study, Act. We collected data with two methods: structured retrospective review for the year April 2021 to April 2022, and prospective review, daily observation evaluation of nursing care delivered at bedside. So this is a pre-intervention data shows average rating to nursing service satisfaction is 84%. So we did the detailed root cause analysis, and we could have bullet causative bullet points for root cause analysis, causative factors like non-structured patient rounds, nursing bedside delays, communication delays and communication errors, handover errors, medication delays and errors, nursing workload and staff shortage. So we planned our journey by identifying all these nursing service gaps, considering all the nursing dynamics at 2 levels, that is interventions for the in-charge and above level, and interventions for senior staff nurses and staff nurses working at bedside. We also ensured 100% implementation of interventions within 45 days. So, interventions for nurse in-charge and above level planned into 3 steps: structured rounds with checklist, structured patient communication, enhanced nursing leadership skills. So, checklist we prepared for structured round at various designations like nurse in-charge, supervisor, ANS, nurse educator to prevent duplication of their daily duplication of work during the rounds. Also, we prepared this checklist to supervise, monitor, and take timely actions for bedside nursing deviations. We prepared structured format for nursing in-charge patient communication. Training was given to all nursing in-charges by conducting patient round in given format. This also included written acknowledgement from the patient for the, and our nursing in-charges directed to solve queries or complaints raised by patient within 24 hours. We conducted 2 days exclusive leadership workshop for nurse leaders, and this gave real boost to our QIP. Interventions for staff nurses and senior staff nurses. We first conducted open house to all our bedside nurses on the role of nurses in patient satisfaction, the crucial role we made them to understand. We also did a lot of reinforcement on a very basic activity like staff nurses to introduce themselves with their name to patient and relatives during the particular shift as mandatory activity. We implemented AWARE strategy to improve on nurse-patient relationship. We implemented 5P rounds and strengthened to have better and best patient monitoring. We created and updated our nursing stations with nursing information boards to reduce patient dissatisfaction for the medication errors, sample collection errors, communication errors, and patient monitoring errors, as these boards had IV calculation guide, medication dosage calculation guides. These boards also had escalation matrix for the bedside challenges faced by the nurses. We installed standard kits for common bedside procedures like BSL, blood sample collection kit, IV calculation kit, urine catheterization trays, so nurses can take ready-made tray available to attend patient and prevent procedure delays. We also implemented innovative method of reminder tags for pending medications to avoid medication delays or administration errors as a vital aspect of treatment satisfaction. Administration of first dose of medication within 30 minutes. We ensured this practice by directing all admission through emergency department, placing a separate nurse at the emergency department to do so. This has contributed majorly due to early access to treatment. We implemented case presentation by nursing staff for nursing staff, consultant open house session for the nurses. This helped us self-development and self-learning, stimulated to the case presentation by nurses for nurses. With this, we could understand the unique nursing needs for the special cases at bedside, long-term care, and consultant guidance and expectation from the nurses. We also started with spot appreciations for each staff by giving thank you card whose names were mentioned in discharge feedback. Also, we appreciated our staff in monthly forums for their good work and noteworthy efforts. Here we realize a cycle that is happy employees make customer happy, happy customers compliment employees, and compliment makes employees happy, and we must take care of this cycle. Monthly PSI score and feedback discussed with staff and improvement initiatives planned. In monthly forums, we also discussed departmental performance and through nursing dashboard presentation, incidents presentation, and action plan. So with all this effort, we could have outcome, that is prevention of duplication of work at various designations, then written acknowledgement from patient prevented vague complaints about nursing, leadership workshops helped us having positive attitude and healthy working culture. Outcome at staff level, their confidence is boosted, their work motivation improved, and this helped us in reducing the nursing attrition rate from 13% to 2.1%. Our procedure errors and medication errors reduced. So this is a post-intervention data which shows visible improvement, and we could achieve the PSI score to 96% average. This is a comparison of pre and post-intervention. This also shows remarkable improvement in NSPI score post-interventions. To summarize, this QIP provided crucial information in measuring patient expectations with improving nursing services, identify necessary training needs, and make important decisions about the care provided by nurses. So way forward, with this QIP, we could understand that to enhance NPSI is continuous improvement activity. We can also take QIP on core behavioral skill development of nurses. We can target zero medication errors, and EBPs can be taken to reduce the sampling errors. We extend our sincere thanks to unit head, entire management team, and my beautiful nursing team to support all the activities under this QIP and achieving the best results. Lastly, patient can forget what you said. Patient may forget your name, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Thank you.
Awesome study, because when
Thank
we
you,
talk
ma'am.
about patient satisfaction, I think they are the most important stakeholders.
Yes, ma'am.
and we need to listen to them.
Yes,
Many a times we forget them and we just continue with our routine activity. So
Yes,
awesome
ma'am.
study.
Thank you.
I found the study too extensive.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
I can
ma'am.
imagine how much of work you all would have
Yes,
put in.
ma'am.
It's like a total quality management. All areas were covered.
Yes, ma'am.
Just two questions for you, dear. I wanted to understand from the study to begin with at the baseline. So you all found patient satisfaction was low. What were the areas that were low? That's one. And when it was low, did you all found there were some atypical periods, like many patients coming in, less number of staff, something of that sort, or
Yes.
maybe some anything, atypical periods. So did you find like that the patient satisfaction had come down because of these atypical periods, or because I found one graph very high, 91%, and then going down. So I was wondering what happened that time when it went to 91%. So was it that you all got a large number of patients who were critical and they went with a lot of unhappiness? Something atypical did it happen?
Ma'am, actually areas we identified was new nurses coming in. Second, evening hours wherein supervision gets toward the lower side. Most of the time non-attending the bedside calls, like call bells. Apart from that, communication errors were very high. So these were the areas actually made us to understand why our satisfaction score is going into satisfactory category. Sometimes acknowledgement was the major thing. Like my team was taking actions, addressing patient queries, but that was not acknowledged by the patient, or we were not ensuring that also, that it is done. So it is simply the closing the communication loop.
Okay, so from what you have told me is just two important areas. One is communication and the other one is maybe not answering to call bells, those areas.
Ma'am, evening
But
hours and-
But then you all have covered many things.
Yes.
So were you to spell this out in the beginning of the study, we found problems in this area, and these are the 4 areas. Therefore, we worked on, for example, medication.
Yes.
Therefore, we worked on leadership. Therefore, we worked on this. So I was not able to tie up this research.
So can I just go to my slide and tell you?
Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, it's not paying, I guess. It's like we understood our communication errors are high. In that, handover errors were major. Then medication were getting missed because patient went to washroom, patient was not there. Sometimes nurse got some distraction or some disturbance when she was giving the medication. So she forgot.
The causes of medication errors. I was just trying to ask you what were the patient
ma'am, this-
dissatisfaction areas.
Yes.
Therefore, you worked on them.
So these causes were actually getting observed by the patient, and they were saying our medications were not given on time. So that was dissatisfaction. So we had to work on medication errors, delays.
So were you able to analyze the areas
Yes.
and work on those areas and show the result in those areas would have made it more comprehensive?
Ma'am, actually that data is there. Medication errors, we had 18 per average per month.
You showed us. You
Yes.
showed us.
This is ma'am. So we had non-structured nursing round on no patient communication format. So nursing handover communication errors were there in policies. Then material and method delays in receiving pharmacy material, procedural delays due to that preparation delays. Then decreased staff communication and interaction with patient and relatives due to lack of knowledge, increased incidences of bedside errors and delays. They were occupied with the work in peak hours.
Yeah, so this is a fishbone analysis. I was just trying to understand your patient satisfaction tool. What are the areas that you all cover and how did you all go down on those areas and how did you all implement based upon those areas and what was the outcome in those areas? Because often we find that whenever you analyze the patient's the satisfaction score, there are certain areas which are very critical and you need to handle them.
So
So,
it was-
I wanted to understand in that perspective.
So one was timely attention, that was getting rated. Second was nurses coming and giving timely medications, that was second parameter. Third was communication from the nurses
Okay,
and discharge process.
perfect.
These 4 points were there in the rating for the nursing feedback.
I have only one doubt because most of the things Madam had asked and you are cleared. In your findings, in your summarizing, can you go back to, it's okay. There are the same month you are showing both the things. September 22, this was the patient satisfaction scale score, the pre, and this is the post. Did you assess in that way? In every month you did it?
Ma'am, actually comparison I showed for the 2 years, that is that last year whole data compared with this after interventions, the whole data of the year. That comparison I have
But
shown.
it is showing that like September 22, one green graph and along with that one blue graph.
No ma'am, it is comparison. I can show you that.
Now the bar diagram, sorry, not graph. Not this, yeah.
So this
August 22.
was, see ma'am, here you can see it is July 22 and after like 21 and I mentioned in the pre-intervention data, in the data method analysis.
I mean to say the blue one, no.
Blue
When
one
did you
is
do?
21.
21, yeah. But it is showing that
I'm-
August
yes,
22.
ma'am, maybe it is
That's what I was saying.
Thank you. It is really exclusive study
Yes,
because finding our own errors and trying to improve, that is we need a courage. That's good actually. And do you plan a strategies like there are 2 ways when we find lacking somewhere. So we try to keep on enhancing, like we try to train. So how many times we can train those nurses to improve this. So do you have a plan strategies for this? This is one. And second, like if we are finding something good score, we are very happy. So what we actually strategize to maintain that sustainability. So that.
Ma'am, actually, as shown in the way forward, this is a continuous activity. So actually a checklist for the nurse in charge, ANS supervisors gave us that insight that we have to have the training differentiation also at various levels, that what my nurse in charge is going to brief, what my nurse supervisor is going to check, or what my ANS is going to mentor for my nurses, or what my nurse educator is going to do. So that has clarified us the training needs and we have planned out and we have a strategy. I have the checklist if you want to see. I have carried with me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, presenters. The results would be announced during the valedictory session. Thanks to all the juries for their valuable feedback and comments. We request the juries and the participant to pose for a photo at the photo corner. We request the research paper presenters also to join for the photo.
Category will be presenting to us now. At this time, we would like to thank our interim juries